Ago, China launched the largest open-source AI model in history, 2.8 trillion parameters, and buried in the official launch documents is one of the most surprisingly honest admissions any AI lab has ever published. We'll get to that admission in a moment because almost nobody covering this story has noticed it. The model is Kimi K3, from Beijing-based Moonshot AI. It went live on the evening of July 16th, just hours after a teaser video set the AI community on fire. And because the internet is currently drowning in hype, half quotes, and honestly some completely wrong numbers, this video does one simple thing: separates what is officially confirmed, straight from Moonshot's own documentation, from what is still rumor. By the end, you'll know exactly what K3 is, why one line in its launch page matters more than any benchmark, and the one enormous practical problem that connects directly to the biggest video on this channel. Let's start with what's confirmed, because the confirmed facts are wild enough. According to Moonshot's official platform documentation, Kimi K3 is the company's most capable model to date, with 2.8 trillion parameters. Not 200 billion, not 30 trillion. And yes, both of those numbers are genuinely circulating in news coverage right now because outlets garbled the leaks. The official page says 2.8 trillion. That makes K3 the first open source model ever to reach that scale. And per Moonshot, it's the latest step in a remarkable streak. In 9 of the past 12 months, Kimi models have set new records for open source model scale. Second confirmed fact, the context window is 1 million tokens. To make that concrete, that's roughly 750,000 words in a single conversation, the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy with room left over for your questions about it. For software engineering, that means an agent can hold a genuinely large codebase in working memory at once instead of peeking at it file by file. Third, K3 has native visual understanding built in. It reads images, not just text, and the platform ships with the modern toolkit developers expect. A thinking mode with adjustable effort, structured JSON output, context caching, and dynamic tool loading. And you don't have to wait to try it. As of launch night, 2 versions are already live for logged-in users on Kimi's own site, K3 Max and K3 Cluster Max, which is why your feed is filling up with hands-on tests barely hours after release. The chat product is free to try. The API pricing we'll get to in a moment is where the economics get interesting. Fourth, the architecture. And this is the genuinely new science. K3 is built on something Moonshot calls Kimi Delta Attention, a hybrid linear attention mechanism, combined with attention residuals. Here's the plain English version of why that matters. Classic transformer attention has a scaling problem. As conversations get longer, the cost of every token comparing itself to every other token explodes. It's why huge context windows have historically been either slow, expensive, or quietly fake. Linear attention schemes fix the cost, but tend to forget details. A hybrid approach tries to capture the best of both, near linear cost with much better recall. If Moonshot has genuinely cracked that balance at this scale, the 1 million token window isn't a marketing number. It's the product. Now, the honest admission I promised you. Every AI launch you've ever seen follows the same script. Our model beats everyone, here are the charts, the king is dead. Moonshot's official documentation says, and I'm quoting the structure of their claim precisely, that in their own evaluations, K3 delivers frontier-level performance, and among the models tested, its overall intelligence ranks second only to Claude Fable 5 and GPT 5.6 Sol. Read that again. A frontier lab on launch day in its own marketing documents, openly stating its brand new flagship is not number 1. I genuinely cannot remember the last time that happened, and it cuts 2 ways. It makes every other claim on that page more believable. Honesty about your ceiling buys credibility for everything else, but it also quietly reframes the entire story the news is telling, because the Financial Times reported, citing sources before launch, that K3 was expected to outperform Claude's Opus models on mainstream benchmarks. Moonshot's own page is more modest than its own leaks. When the full technical report and third-party benchmarks land, that gap between the rumor and the self-assessment is the thing to watch. Which brings us to the hype column, the claims you should file under wait for evidence. 1. K3 beats the top closed models. Reported expectation, not yet independently verified. And as we just saw, Moonshot itself doesn't claim it. 2. The training details, the active parameter count, and the expert configuration. Unknown until the technical report ships. For reference, the previous generation, Kimi K2, used a mixture of experts design with 1 trillion total parameters, but only 32 billion active per token. If K3 follows the family blueprint at nearly 3 times the size, the active slice is what will determine real-world speed and cost. And we simply don't know it yet. 3. The license. K2 shipped under a modified MIT license, one of the friendliest in the industry. Whether K3 matches that, we'll know when the weights drop, which, per the official page, is happening, quote, in the coming days. And the pricing is already public on the platform. Via the API, $3 per million input tokens, dropping to 30 cents on cache hits, and $15 per million output tokens, with the full million token context available. For a frontier scale model, that input price undercuts the American flagships by a wide margin, and it continues the exact pattern that's made Chinese open weight models impossible to ignore this year. Comparable capability, a fraction of the price. So what happens when those weights actually drop? This is where the story collides with the biggest video on this channel. 2.8 trillion parameters, even crushed down to 4-bit precision, is roughly 1.4 terabytes of model weights. Let that sink in. The GLM 5.2 model we covered recently, the one that shocked everyone by running on a laptop with no GPU, is 744 billion parameters, and its compressed file is about 370 gigabytes. K3 is nearly 4 times bigger. There is no consumer machine on Earth that holds 1.4 terabytes in memory. Renting a GPU cluster for it would cost more per month than a car. But here's the thing. If K3 is a mixture of experts model like every other frontier release this year, then at any given moment, the overwhelming majority of those 2.8 trillion parameters are asleep. And that means the exact technique we broke down in our Calibri video, keeping a small resident core and RAM and streaming the active experts off a fast SSD on demand, is realistically the only path by which a normal person will ever run this model at home. Slowly? Absolutely. But at $0 per token on hardware you own, with a model that Moonshot itself says sits just behind the 2 best AIs on the planet. The moment those weights hit the internet, that experiment begins. And if you want the full explanation of how SSD streaming makes impossible models possible, that video is linked right up in the corner and in the description. Step back, and here's the bigger picture. 12 months ago, the conventional wisdom said Chinese labs trailed the American frontier by roughly a year. Per the Financial Times, K3 is expected to challenge that assumption directly. And Moonshot is reportedly raising new funding at a $31.5 billion valuation on the strength of it. Whatever the final benchmarks say, the strategic picture is already clear. The biggest open source models in the world now come from China. They cost a fraction of the closed alternatives, and the release cadence is accelerating. 9 scale records in 12 months. The gap between AI you rent and AI you can download has never been this narrow at the very top end. 3 things to watch from here. The weights release, days away per Moonshot, and the license that comes with them. The technical report, that's where the active parameter count and the real architecture details land. And the first independent benchmarks, the test of whether the honest number 2 claim holds, or whether K3 quietly overdeliver. Here's my honest question for you, and I'll pin it below. If the weights drop under an open license, 1.4 terabytes running at maybe a token per second off an SSD, would you actually download a Frontier model to own it forever? Or is the $3 API the only version of this that matters? Tell me in the comments. The best argument features in a follow-up. Every source in this video, the official Kimi K3 documentation, the pricing page, and the reporting I referenced, is linked in the description so you can verify every claim yourself. That's the standard on this channel. If you want the biggest AI stories broken down straight, sourced, and in plain English every single day, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.